Hello YouTube world, it's Jack Cypher here, and today I want to talk about the Reanimation Jutsu, the Edo Tensei, or the Impure World Reincarnation Technique. Whatever name you want to give it, the jutsu that brings the fucking dead back to life in immortal bodies. You heard me, bring the dead back to life. This is one of the most broken and powerful techniques in the entire series. According to Kabuto, it's the most powerful jutsu in history. A sentiment I can't really argue with. I can only think of two other techniques that are on the same level of brokenness, and that's the Kamui and the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. In the future, I definitely might have to do a top 5 broken jutsu video, but for now, let's talk about this overpowered technique. The Reanimation Jutsu's main purpose is to bind a deceased person's soul into a living sacrifice, to restore them to how they were when they were alive, to be immortal soldiers for the summoner. This jutsu was created by Tobirama Senju, who declared it a forbidden jutsu. It later fell into the hands of Orochimaru, who made the technique even stronger, but it was Orochimaru's subordinate, Kabuto Yakushi, who would later go on to perfect this technique. To use this technique, you must first acquire some form of DNA from the person you want to reanimate. According to Kabuto, this is essentially grave robbing. However, things like blood or organs are also acceptable. The person you want to revive must also inhabit the Pure Land, meaning people in the Shinigami's stomach cannot be reanimated. This technique also requires a human sacrifice for the reincarnated soul. After you acquire the necessary DNA from the person you want to reanimate, you must then smear that DNA onto a special scroll. Once the scroll activates, the remains surround the living sacrifice in the form of a seal. Then the sacrifice's body is encased in ash and dust, forcibly transforming their appearance to match that of what the person being reincarnated looked like. It also overrides the sacrifice's chakra signature with that of one of the reanimations, never to return to how it was. As stated before, the first two users of this technique, Tobirama and Orochimaru, could only summon a certain amount of reincarnated souls, and they were quite a bit weaker than they were when they were alive. It's Kabuto who took this technique to new heights though, being able to bring someone back to almost the same level of strength they possessed when they were alive. He can also summon a seemingly limitless number of reincarnated souls, without even having to use any of his own chakra. Speaking of chakra, the reincarnated shinobi have a limitless refill of their chakra reserves. Many people wrongly assume that the reanimations have infinite chakra. This isn't true. If this was true, Lord Mu would have been able to use the particle style despite splitting himself with his fission technique. It would also mean that people could create infinite amounts of clones, which we never see. No, it's more accurate to say they can infinitely restore their own chakra. However, this process still takes a bit of time, though it's much quicker than a living person. It's quick enough to give the appearance of infinite chakra. The most powerful ability of the Reanimation Jutsu, though, might be the fact that the reincarnated souls are revived in immortal bodies. These bodies can regenerate from nearly any injury instantly, meaning that even though the reincarnated souls aren't revived with their full power, they're still gaining immortal bodies and infinite chakra, meaning they're potentially even more dangerous than they were when they were alive. Now let's look at some of the very few ways you can stop this technique. First off, killing the user of the Reanimation Jutsu does not end the jutsu. Killing the user would be incredibly inadvisable. One of the ways the jutsu can be broken is if the reincarnated soul is affected in some deeply emotional way, providing the soul closure. However, this isn't a very reliable way because if the user fully suppresses the reincarnated soul's emotions, it makes it incredibly difficult for the soul to move on. The most effective way to end the technique is to find the summoner and force or control them to weave the hand signs necessary to end the jutsu. However, since the user of the technique is usually very powerful, it makes it very hard to force the user to end the jutsu. Though I don't suggest it, another way to end the jutsu is to seal the reincarnated soul with the Reaper Death Seal. However, this is a double-edged sword since it also kills you, making this an absolute last resort. The most efficient way to stop a reanimated soldier is to bind them, to stop them from moving. This can be done in a variety of ways. However, the problem is that the reanimated shinobi are incredibly powerful, making it very hard to bind them. Madara Uchiha was able to escape the control of the reanimation by performing the same hand signs as the jutsu itself. But you know, it's Madara, the dude is bloody unstoppable. Itachi was also able to break out of the jutsu by using the Kodo Amatsuki Kami on himself. These two situations are so unlikely to happen though that they're not really a weakness of the jutsu, more like the fallow brokenness of the Uchiha. So as we can see, the Reanimation Jutsu has very few weaknesses, which is surprising since the technique is so dangerous and powerful. This jutsu can take care of nearly anyone in the Naruto series by summoning a legion of immortal soldiers. It makes the user practically invincible. It's because of all this that makes the technique so broken. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want me to make more videos on broken Naruto jutsu, then make sure to let me know in the comments. Also, it would really help me out a lot if you could like and subscribe. Now, Cypher out.